Hello, hello. Sorry, I'm a couple minutes late. It is the usual fall marching band season technology problem. I keep forgetting that I take my camera off of here to take it to the football stadium to take pictures of the kids, and that I have to reset it up every week. I'm going to remember this at some point. Maybe. So hope everyone's had a great week. This week we are talking about couple relationships when you are in a household with neurodivergence, whether that's parents of kids who are struggling, or one or both of you might have ADHD or autism, and how that impacts your relationships, some things you can do, and tips and helps and just conversation around that relationship in the home. So I'm going to go ahead and run the intro. We'll bring Susan on and we will dive right in. Hi, I'm Nicole, and as you have probably guessed, I have ADHD. I live and breathe all things ADHD in my personal, family, and professional life. I have a background in psychology and special education, and I've gained a lot of knowledge over the years about ADHD, what it really is, how it touches every aspect of your life and the life of your child, as well as a wealth of information and strategies for living with ADHD and parenting kids with ADHD. In this community, we share stories, we learn together, and we support each other as we navigate all things ADHD. Welcome. Hello, friend.
Hello, my dear. So good to see you today.
How you doing?
I'm quite good, thank you. Sunny
Yeah?
outside. Yes, I'm going to a big party tonight. So I'm
Fun.
very happy today.
Love it.
How are your kids doing back to school?
Yeah, it's been a ride. Getting the oldest settled in at college, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster. But classes have started and things are settling in, and hopefully we're through the big feelings and the overwhelm of 14-hour days of band camp the week before class starts doesn't help with that, but
Oh, no, not at all.
but he's
The
making
rabbi
friends and
Yeah. Oh, good. The rabbi at my synagogue this morning has a young child starting kindergarten and, from preschool. And she said, the first day, terrible, floods of tears. The second day, a little better. Kid didn't cry. Today, she was holding on to the sofa, didn't want to leave the house, and said, do we have to do math again today? It's only the third day of kindergarten, kiddo. You're going to have a lot of math yet to do in your life.
Yeah. And then my youngest started, and 2 days in, immediately got sick and was out of school for next week. I'm like, this is not what we need, but he seems to be doing well. New classroom, new teacher, all those transitions are always a little tricky. It just takes some time to figure things out and get everyone on the same page with behavior intervention plans, but so far so good.
Good.
And middle kiddo who made the transition to the high school, it's been like nothing because of marching band. It makes that transition so much easier because he's already been in the school for a full year doing band stuff. He already knows a bunch of upperclassmen. He knows half of his teachers. And so even though it's a school of 3,500 students, it's been no big deal.
That's as big as my whole college was.
Bigger than mine. Granted, I went to a small college, but
I went to a small college, and it was 3,000 undergrads.
Yeah. One one thing my oldest was saying, he's not at a small college. He's at a big university. And he had his first auditorium class that has like 400. He was like,
Wow.
what is this? I was like, yep. Welcome to the 10-10 level classes at a big university. It's not the same.
Yes, I'm helping a new client who is starting at a university in 2 weeks, and he hadn't found out what his new classes were. So in our first session this past week, we went through what are the likely classes. He hasn't been assigned his freshman classes yet. Oh, yes, English 100 and math 100 and oh, look, what am I going to be taking this first year of school? Because he hadn't gotten in all his preliminary paperwork, so he hadn't seen his schedule yet. And it was eye-opening for a kid. That transition from high school to college is really eye-opening.
We did a few things to it's interesting because my son has done a lot of concurrent enrollment classes in high school. So, he has like one higher level class and then one intro level class. And then, so it's like he's got a mix of stuff there. So that's been interesting. But one thing we did that I think is going to really help is because he's in the marching band, you can take as many credits. You have to take at least one credit of marching band, but you can take as many as you want. And so we decided to bump up a couple of marching band classes and drop one of his other classes. So he only has 3 academic classes to manage. And so I think that's going to help him quite a bit because he was feeling really stressed about, it's like, it's all right. You only got 3 classes to worry about. And one of them is one of his major classes. So he's good at those classes because it's his high interest. And, so that one isn't going to be hard. So you really only have to manage these 2 classes that are, moderately difficult. And so that took a lot of pressure off of him.
Yes. This would be a good place to segue into our topic for today, but how are you and your husband handling having a child in college?
It is weird. It's so, and it's been a lot of us trying to, help him because as he realizes that his parents aren't just right around the corner and when things are tough and he's had some up and downs emotionally and we both, approach him in those times differently. And so that's been, something we've come together on and chatted about a lot is, okay, well, how do we best support him through some of these challenges and how much input should we be giving and how much, kind of balancing having an adult child and trying to give them an opportunity to struggle a little bit with some things, but also being supportive parents. And we have it's been tricky, with the start of school and everything being really busy for us to make sure that we're putting in that time.
And spreading your attention to the other kids who are going through transitions of their own. So we've already identified at least 4 stresses on a couple relationship here. You have a child leaving the home. You have a child making a transition into high school. You have a younger child. And you're having to navigate. Did the 2 of you manage these things the same way, or do you have different attitudes about navigating them? So there are
just the dynamic in the home has changed quite a bit without, with one person not being there the whole time. The other kids are dealing with that transition and the emotions of my brother moved out, and it's been.
There's a lot of both loss and gain here to navigate. And so when we talk about couple relationships, a lot depends on what the strength of that couple relationship was before these transitions and how well, this is always my symbol. I introduce it every time we talk about this stuff. This is my symbol for working together as a team, right? Versus, sort of passing each other by as you handle things. problems. And so our topic for today to our listeners is, how do we manage couple relationships when you have the stress of having children with special needs and when you're undergoing transitions? And we're excited to talk about this because we both actually are in intact marriage relationships with multiple children with special needs. So we have unusual situations ourselves. I want to be very clear that having an intact couple relationship when you have children with special needs is not unusual. Intact marriages, when you have children with special needs, are typical situations. Divorce rates in our families are not that significantly higher than divorce rates in families without children with special needs, despite some sensationalism in the media. And so if you actually do research in this field, and guess what? I do or have, our divorce rates are not higher. They range in the same 40 to 50% rate that neurotypical marriages have. So I want to start out with that very encouraging statistic.
Right. You're not doomed.
Right? Now, there are some variability. There's slightly higher divorce rates in families that have children with Down syndrome, for example. And there are some higher divorce rates in families with severe chronic medical conditions. But in typical special needs situations, learning disabilities, ADHD, and autism, there are not higher divorce rates. Now, a 40 to 50% divorce rate typically in our society is not a good thing. I mean, let's be very clear about that. But we're not at higher risk simply because our children have received diagnoses. So I want us to start off by being encouraged. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't have some special circumstances and stresses because we're dealing with children with special needs. We do. And so today we want to talk about how we cope with some of those special stresses. Do you want to pick up from there, Nicole, or shall I continue?
It's I think just kind of what you were touching on there is that one of the ways we make sure that we stay successful is by recognizing that things are going to look different and that we're going to have to do things differently. That we can't have, it's that lens change again, right? We have to manage the expectations of what it's going to look like. And we're going to have to be a little bit more intentional. If it comes to things like a traditional date night, we have not been able to do that for years. Every once in a while, but not like we are not going on a date night out of the house weekly because getting babysitters is a lot harder. Not everyone's equipped to manage what's going on, and when you have to get better trained babysitters, or like we couldn't just hire the 14-year-old girl around the corner.
Right.
That wasn't going to work. We had to find girls who were, older teenagers, and they don't do as much babysitting as the younger teenagers in our area because they've got other jobs and other things. So you're usually paying more for your babysitter. And so it makes things look a little different. You have to find different ways to maintain that relationship outside of what's going on with the kiddos.
And we found not just did we need older babysitters, but a lot of our families need professional babysitters with some kind of training. For example, we needed nursing support because for several years, our daughter required breathing treatments for asthma. And she required regular breathing treatments. And so we needed somebody who was comfortable with nursing intervention. It wasn't that she required much help, but we needed somebody who felt comfortable providing a breathing treatment to our child. And so there's another expense, but it didn't mean we couldn't leave her at all. We found a teenager who was interested in going into college for pre-med. And then at some point, we hired a nanny from another country who had had nursing training in her country. And we found that through a local organization who had brought refugees and immigrants from other countries, and that woman was looking for a job. So it is available in the community.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also want to talk about the support that couples need. So, for example, our first child was born prematurely. I gave birth 16 weeks prematurely. I was only 6 months pregnant. And we were devastated. In fact, because at 10 days old, her lungs collapsed and we put her on do not resuscitate orders for 3 weeks. It was extremely upsetting.
That's so stressful.
If she was going to live or die. And we found a therapist right away because we needed to manage our expectations around not just whether our daughter would live or die, but how severely disabled our daughter would be. And so one of the important things for couples to understand when you have children with more severe special needs is the support that you need as both a parent and as a couple. One of the reasons we were able to stay together as a couple is, again, I was a psychologist myself at the time. I knew that we were going to need psychological support, not just how we were going to manage our child's life, but to stay together as a couple. And so I found us a therapist while our daughter was still in neonatal intensive care. And then we continued seeing that therapist for the first year of her life because we needed that extra support to manage her disabilities and to manage the stress that we felt as a couple. Now, we were an older couple. We were 36 and 38 when she was born, but there were many couples, 20, 22 years old, whose children were born in the neonatal intensive care unit, experiencing the same crises we were experiencing, finding out that our child was developmentally delayed, finding out our child had disabilities at that same moment that we were finding out, and who needed the support. We went on antidepressive and anti-anxiety medications. We found a therapist. We were married 12 years at that point because we had married young. We postponed having our children, but a lot of those couples were very young, didn't have the social emotional support. Finding that support as soon as your child gets a diagnosis is a critical step to protecting your relationship.
Yeah. And a lot of it is just, being aware that this is going to look different and we're going to need help and being very proactive with that. There have been multiple times where I've needed my own therapist to be able to manage what was going on with my kids. And there were times when I let it go too far and then I suffered. I suffered, my kids suffered when I wasn't managing that for myself. It started to affect me physically. And, we've got to be careful and proactive at noticing when those times are coming, when a kid is in crisis for a long period of time. I developed a trauma response when I saw the school's phone number on my phone because things had gotten so difficult and it just felt like there was no plan and things weren't working out. And so, I had to learn how to work through that myself. And then it does impact your relationships. And so, being proactive and knowing where to look if things start to get a little harder and you feel like, having those resources on hand before you're in crisis, so you know who to call. You've got therapists that marriage counselors, support people in your life that you've got those resources ready for when you need them.
Yes. You know, there's quite a lot of research on what are the biggest risks to a marriage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And having a child with special needs is still very low on that list. But the things that are high on the list are so impacted by having a child with special needs. So, Nicole, do you have any guesses? What are the top 3 problems for couples?
Finances.
Money is always number 1. That is so impacted by having a child with special needs.
Yeah.
Therapies, medications, treatments. Okay, what's number 2, Nicole?
I would just say time management,
Right. Nope, that's not that's on the list, but way far down.
I don't know.
Sex.
Oh,
Sex
well,
is
yeah.
number 2 on the list. Intimacy, particularly physical intimacy, is a huge problem why couples break up. And having kids with special needs really impacts your ability to have physical intimacy for a number of reasons. One is because your time and energy is so taken up with your child with special needs that sometimes you are just not available emotionally or physically to your partner because for several reasons. One is because you're exhausted taking care of your child with special needs. One is mothers especially will understand this. You are what we call touched out. You are so, especially if you have a sensory child who clings to you physically at all times. If whether or not you're breastfeeding, which is a whole different issue, and I did pump for my first child and breastfeed my second child. My first child was not physically able to latch on properly. So she could not fully feed by breast, but I pumped every 3 hours.
It's exhausting.
24 hours. I skipped the 3 a.m. I pump at midnight every 3 hours from 6 a.m., 9 a.m., noon, 3 p.m., 6 p.m., 9 p.m., midnight. I'd go to sleep at midnight. I'd skip the 3 a.m. feeding and pump again. I did that for a year, including when she was in the NICU, born prematurely.
Physically exhausting.
So that she would have breast milk, because that was the healthiest thing for her, being born prematurely.
Right.
Imagine how physically exhausted your body is. And then being able, when you were finally healed enough from the birth to have sex, you didn't want it because your body is so touched out. And then imagine when the baby is old enough or well enough. My baby was sensory clinging, sensory, wanted more, had to be in physical contact with me in order to sleep or calm down. So my baby I wore my baby. My husband and I took turns wearing her. So she was in physical contact with me at all times, and then co-slept with us because she would not calm in her own bed. So she had to be in physical contact with one of us at all times. No space for sex, just none.
No. Oh, my youngest did not sleep through the night until he was almost 8 years old, and it required one of us to be physically in his room. Because he would not stay in the bed unless you're physical, not necessarily touching him when he was older. There was a long time where you had to have at least an arm on him. But we had to sit in the chair in his room for an hour and a half. Whether it was at 8 o'clock at night when he was going to bed or whether it was at 2 a.m. when he woke up. So physically exhausted. And that's a good chunk of time that you're just occupied just trying to get this child to sleep.
So sex. So number 1 was money. Number 2 reason relationships end is sex. Any idea about number 3?
I knew this at one point because I have a book.
A book?
I have a really good book about being in a relationship when one of the partners has ADHD. I don't, for professional reasons only, right?
Of course.
Religion, politics. That's my
Nope.
guess. Dang it.
Conflict and communication. All right. So the top, right? So intimacy, money, and communication issues.
Mm-hmm.
And that one is so, what happens is that the couple turns away from each other when things get difficult instead of turning to each other. Here's my working together symbol again, to try and work things out. They assume that the other person isn't listening, isn't paying attention, isn't on the same page, or doesn't want to work things out because there's a disagreement. And this one is easily solved. It really is, which couples are always stunned by. And the easy solution, and I have 7 books on the topic myself and teach this to all the families I work with, is what we call active listening. It's a strategy for learning to hear what the other person is saying, even if you disagree with them, what we call validation. It simply means listening to the other person and repeating back what they say without rebutting, without being defensive, without having to disagree. I understand how it makes sense to have your side of the story, even if it's different than mine. And by showing that level of understanding and validation, what it does is increases mutual trust and respect. And by showing your partner trust and respect, you can resolve disagreements. So
and
this is hard.
It is
This is hard for
it's
couples.
a skill.
Yes.
Because and especially, that it all kind of relates to the same thing. We're exhausted. You're not in. I always use this analogy, and since we were just talking about college level classes, we are not enrolled in parenting 101, right? We are enrolled in parenting 7580 with these kids. It requires a lot more emotional energy, intellectual time, research. It requires a lot more of us, which then means there's less available for other things. Yes. And so wanting to, after a day, with struggles, helping a child, even if the day went well, it's still, it's still a higher level class, even if you're getting good grades. To get to the end of that day and then want to have a serious conversation about something, sometimes it just don't have the energy and it gets avoided, and then it always gets bigger when you're avoiding talking about something, and then it blows up later. And so recognizing and being able to communicate when things are small before they get there, and making sure you're making those connection and communication points on a regular basis. It and doesn't, my mom gives 2 pieces of marriage advice to everyone, and they're always like, what's your advice? And everyone in the circle always says, don't go to bed angry. And my mom says, go ahead and go to bed angry, because otherwise you're just going to be tired and angry. So get some sleep and have the conversation when you're emotionally capable. And that might mean setting aside some time, having a conversation in the morning, and, going back to the intimacy conversation, maybe you got to be a little more creative about when that happens, because at the end of the day, this might not be the best time. Her other piece of advice is never iron his shirts, because then it becomes your job forever. He can iron them himself, or he can take them to the cleaners.
I love it. I love it. I love go to bed angry, because otherwise you'll be tired and angry. I love it. I love it. I think what we're really saying here is that couples need to recognize that maintenance of their relationship is as important as anything else they do. Taking
Right.
care of their house, going to work, taking care of the children, right?
Mm-hmm.
Providing. Maintenance of your relationship is a critical part of what you have to do. You can't ignore your relationship because
Mm-hmm.
other things are important. Because if your relationship breaks down, everything else breaks down too.
Right.
And so if you start saying, I have no time to work on my relationship issues because I have a kid who needs therapy 5 times a week, or goes to ABA, or is, medically has to be hospitalized regularly, or
Mm-hmm.
I have to juggle all their commitments because, my kid does 2 sports and my other kid has 3 therapies and is in theater and but
Mm-hmm.
if your relationship breaks down, nothing happens at all.
Right.
If the relationship isn't strong so that you can work together as a team and feel
Mm-hmm.
good about yourself as a person, it's a basic piece of self care. It's foundational
Right.
to your family.
It's
And so,
putting the
basic,
oxygen mask on first. You have to
exactly.
carve out time. And that doesn't mean, oh, again, we have to figure out how to go on a date night every week. No, maybe it means you are watching a TV show together for 20 minutes every night. So you're making that connection.
Right,
Maybe
right.
it's, where we can't go on, before we had kids, and we got married young too, and we waited 5 years to have kids for similar reasons. Things had to be in place, and we were in school. And so, um, we had a lot of time to kind of talk about what do we want it to look like when we do bring kids in here. And we had all kinds of great plans about, oh, we're going to take this trip once a year, and we're going to do this, and those things do not work. We cannot go on a
No,
week-long vacation every year just ourselves. And maybe in a few years, because our kids are older, but there's not people who we can leave our kids with for that extended period of time. So maybe we're just doing an overnight in the city that we live. Maybe we're, but still figuring out ways
yeah.
to have those set aside times
I
where we're
love,
not talking about
yeah,
the kids. We make rules. Okay,
exactly.
we're doing this, and we're not going to talk about the kids. We're going to find some, we're going to talk about our interests and our hobbies. And both of us have it, we have different interests when it comes to that stuff. So both of us having our own things. I love to get
There you go.
heavily involved in marching band. I'm an extrovert. I need people. My husband is not. He is very introverted. So he has his weekly, he goes and plays Magic the Gathering at the game store, and he does that for himself. I go do my thing, and then we are charged to come together rather than trying to you know either one of us feeling like we aren't fulfilled in that area because the other person doesn't like what we're doing.
I'm so
So
glad you brought that up because it's so important that each person have either their own friends or their own circle. I get to
mhm.
have lunch with my girlfriends. My husband flies model airplanes. And
Mm,
so 4 times a week this summer, after everybody got settled for their, my daughter and I got settled for our day, my husband took off and flew his model airplane for a couple hours
mhm.
while the weather was good. And the happiness level in our house greatly increased this summer because
Right.
he had a hobby that he was really satisfied with. And that made a lot of difference in our household too. And I was happier seeing him be happy.
Right.
We didn't have to do it together. I had no interest in going to do that. In fact, I had to work, but he's
Well,
retired
and
and he enjoyed his hobby.
working together to make sure that the other person has those time, I'm going to take this shift so you can do this. It does strengthen your relationship together because you are solving a problem together. You are making sure that the other person is taken care of, and that that you're taking care of each other, and
Yes.
that does bring you closer together.
Yes,
So, finding ways to connect together, finding ways to make sure the other person has their needs met is
yes,
what's going to get you through some of those times where it's not possible to get out and go do things together away from the home. You find ways to
exactly.
connect inside the home.
And it doesn't always mean away from the children, because
Mhm.
sometimes, like we just took a family vacation in July. I have adult children now, but we took them with us.
Mhm.
And you know what? We all had our own bedrooms. We didn't all eat together. My adult children
Mhm.
had their own car. They went and ate separately from us a couple of
Mhm.
nights, but we all went and hung out on the beach together during the day. We went shopping separately a couple of the days. It's not like we're all joined at the hips all the time, but then we came
Mhm.
together and did things together as a family.
Right.
And that was also very, um, what's the word I want? Enriching for me as
Yeah.
a mother and for us
Mhm.
as a couple.
Right.
Because part of what makes my couple life richer is that I have brought up my children to want to spend time with me.
Mhm.
And I have to tell you
Mhm.
now, my adult kids had a little bit of a crisis. They asked me to come over. I helped solve whatever the problem was. And as my son was walking me to my car, he hugged me and told me, what a good mother I was and how much he depended on me. I
Oh.
know, right? Your heart
Oh,
could just burst with love.
it's
And
the best
to
thing. It's
me,
like everything, my whole life goal has been
right,
completed. They don't
exactly.
say those things very often, but
They
man, when
don't.
they
My son is
when they express
27,
it, oh.
and the fact that my kids want to spend time with me and with
Mhm.
their father, and that we plan family things together is just as enriching to my life as a mother and to my
Yeah.
husband and I as a couple,
Mhm.
because we have the opportunity to say our life has been well spent.
Right.
So my husband and I went away last weekend. We spent literally 48 hours up in Estes Park. We left Friday afternoon. We came back Sunday afternoon. We spent two
Mhm.
nights in a hotel. We saw friends of ours. Um, and yet I texted my kids. I spent the whole time buying presents, you know, for
Yeah.
my staff, for my colleagues, for my kids. And I was very happy to come home. And, my daughter lives with me. Coming back home was just as gratifying as the time I got to spend away with my husband. And
Mhm.
yet it gave me oxygen. You mentioned the oxygen mask. My
Yeah.
husband and I don't get Dayton. If we go these weekends away, it's probably every 6 months,
Yeah.
right?
That would
Because,
be frequent for
right.
we hope to once a year, and it
Yeah.
hasn't happened every
So
year.
this year was a big year. We had a January family weekend up skiing. July, I took us to the beach, and I had a weekend in Estes, just the
Mhm.
two of us. That was a lot of family time for us. And then I have a
Yeah.
wedding. I mean, my kids are getting married. But I feel really enriched that I planned time for my husband and I to have 2 days staying in a hotel,
Yeah.
eating whatever we were eating. It was lovely, even if what we did was watch videos and
Right.
sleep. I didn't wait. I woke up early because I'm just that constitutionally not a sleep late sort of person, but he
Mhm.
did. And then we had, yogurt and cheap bagels for breakfast because that was the continental breakfast at the hotel.
Yeah.
I was out of what my normal element is. I didn't have to see clients for those 2 days, though I did answer a
Mhm.
bunch of text messages because I see teen clients and they reach out whenever they reach out,
Right.
right? I can never 100% get away. I took time to protect my family. Last night, I went and solved a problem, and my son thanked me. Everything I do is about my kids and my family, and also about my relationship. And that's
Mm-hmm.
really the point of our talk today, Nicole, is
Yeah.
you have to look at every relationship when you're a parent. And when you have kids with special needs like ours, it just takes that little bit of extra effort to say, is our foundation solid?
Yeah.
And
I
I
want to
felt
talk
so
a few
lucky that I
minutes
had this. Go
about,
ahead.
since we have about a little
10
less than
minutes?
15 minutes
10
left.
minutes. Go ahead.
I want to talk a little bit about when one of the adults in the relationship is the one with a neurodivergence,
Oh, good.
and
Yeah,
how
let's
that
do that
can
because I have that too.
impact,
Yeah.
because it's been a little tricky in my marriage. I have ADHD, and there are things that I am not great at. Right. And that would typically be my role, or that we had decided early on was going to be my role, and then it's not my strength. So trying to figure out that, and for my husband, who is the only working set of executive functions in our household full of ADHD, that has been a stressor in the relationship in the past. So for both people to kind of have an understanding of strengths and weaknesses and dividing up responsibilities, and for one, oftentimes the one who doesn't have the need feels like they're carrying a bigger burden. So it's something that we need to be aware of, that we and how it impacts things like intimacy and finances and and communication, right? Typically, the one with ADHD is not the best at sticking to the budgets, or we forget, out of sight, out of mind when it comes to intimacy. You get hyper focused on something, and we forget that it's been a long time, or there's all of these things that can impact that relationship, that make things a little bit more complex.
You bring up such good points. So my husband has pretty severe ADHD as well. He was diagnosed in middle school, actually. So it's been the whole time I've known him. And honestly, in most of the families you and I work with, it's very likely one of the parents does, because many of
Right.
these conditions have a genetic component.
Highly genetic.
So it's very likely that one of the parents has something,
Right.
whether it's a learning disability, ADHD, or autism. The key thing here is acceptance.
Yeah.
And just like we say, as we have said in so many of these podcasts over the upteen years we've been doing this, Nicole, given that we've known each other, 6 years now since we started doing this on Clubhouse during COVID.
Yep.
We don't punish our children for behaviors related to their disability.
Right.
That has been a mantra of ours.
Right.
It has to be the mantra of our relationship as well.
Exactly.
Punishing our partners for behaviors related to their disability is simply a recipe for disaster.
Yeah. And on the other side, it's my responsibility to recognize if too much is being put on my husband because of my struggles and our kids, and figure out other solutions.
So what did we say? The number 3 reason that relationships break up, it was money, intimacy, and communication. So
Right.
the issue when you have a partner with special needs is communication, and the related need is executive functioning support. And so the first thing you have to do is recognize what the special need is, and then build systems into your relationship to support it. And
Yep.
that includes all the other problems. So
Mm-hmm.
executive functioning means that you have to build in budget planning, you have to build in meal planning, you have to build in grocery shopping, you
Mm-hmm.
have to build in transportation, you have to build in calendars, you have to build in child support in terms of, for example, who manages the homework, who manages the clothing, who manages the transportation to and from events. Pretty much everything has to be planned and organized, and not just by one person, so that it's fair. So my husband
Speaking of, I have a resource. I'll show you. I don't know if you've seen this before.
Yes, the skyline. Is that the one you're going to
No.
talk about? Oh, it's something different.
This
Oh, look at this.
It's called they have a deck of cards. The Fair
I
Play
love
cards.
it already.
So these are some of the things that are on there. And it kind of walks you through. You can get these on Amazon or whatever. It's called the Fair Play deck.
I'm ordering them.
And it goes through all of the different categories that might need to be taken care of in a home, right? So we've got groceries, hard questions with kids, grooming and wardrobe, holidays, holiday cards, health insurance, home goods and supplies, home renovation, laundry, like anything you can think of. And what you do is you go through the deck, you pick out the ones that are applicable to your house. And then there's also blank ones that you can write your own things in. Right?
Yes.
And then you go through all of the cards and you start assigning them. This is one you take care of. This is one you take care of. And it's so visual. So you can start to see if one person's deck is this big and the other's this big, we might need to do some redistribution. So it just kind of gives a tangible way to talk about all the different kind of mental load tasks for a household. And who do we want to be in charge of each of these things? So, you know, if one person's in charge of kids' school lunch, that person is always in charge of it. Now, that doesn't mean I'm never going to help, but it means it's that person's responsibility to figure out how this is going to be done in our house.
I love it.
So it's not like, oh, I'm not going to help with the lawn and plants, but that might be.
It also doesn't mean that you don't switch off monthly or quarterly or semesters.
But that person is in charge of making sure that thing happens, however it works. Helps to manage some of that mental load.
I love it. Now, one of the things we do in my books, the Fighting for Your Marriage books, is we have a huge chapter on expectations. And there are literally 30 areas of expectations around things like children from previous marriages, work and careers, emotional dependency, basic approach to life, power and control, household tasks, religious beliefs and observances, time together, friendship with your partner, forgiveness, other relationships. And one of the things I have couples do when I work with families is explore their expectations. So what that does is you do that before you do this card deck. Because before you can assign the tasks, you have to talk about what are your expectations.
Right.
Because I think it's always important to talk about your feelings and needs in each of those areas before you assign the tasks.
Yes.
Because if you have hurt feelings or unmet needs and tasks are assigned, there's going to be a breakdown in the problem solution area.
Yeah. Well, and you know, sometimes we come into a marriage or any, you know, a long-term relationship with the way that we were raised and the way that we think things should be. And the other person has their own set.
Exactly.
And sometimes we don't even realize because we're just like, oh, well, that's the way you do this, right? And the other person's like, what are you even talking about? So figuring out what does a clean kitchen look like? What, you know, don't we always do this?
How often do you change the sheets?
Which way does the toilet paper go? You know, these things are important.
So,
and the correct answer is over.
Right. And actually, according to the patent for toilet paper and toilet paper holders, they show
the correct answer is over.
And if you ever buy printed toilet paper, you can't read what's on the printed toilet paper unless it goes over. So now that we've solved that world problem, Nicole,
The eternal debate
Having a
has
discussion,
resolved.
open communication around your expectations in each of the areas that those cards resolve is going to be critical before you assign the cards. Because if you have unspoken needs or feelings in those areas, then just assigning cards could be a source of conflict.
Sure.
See, otherwise, I love the cards and I'm going to order them immediately. I think they're wonderful.
I'm
Wonderful.
always a fan of anything that can make it tangible and
I
physical. I like to
agree
have everything spread out
completely.
in front of me and then
So
organize
good.
it.
So good. And I want to make sure, because I didn't see, make sure there's cards around date nights and friendship activities.
Yes, there are.
But be reasonable in your expectations based on what your lives are like, both in terms of your jobs and the needs of your special needs kids. So
Yep.
important. Now, let's come back to when you have one or both members who have neurodivergence themselves, right? Is that you are also making appropriate accommodations.
Yes.
And I want to make sure we use that word here because so my husband and I am an expert in this field, as you and your husband are, Nicole. And my husband have regular arguments because of things like, I'll say, could you please do this task? And he'll start the task. And as I leave to go back to my office, I'll say, and don't forget to do this second task. He will drop the task he's doing. He's in the middle of washing a dish or cooking dinner. He will drop it and start the second task.
Yep.
When my intention was complete the task you're doing and then go do the second task at a later time. But his ADHD brain processes that the second task is supposed to be done immediately and he doesn't complete the first task. And I have neglected in my rush to get back to my work to say, do the tasks sequentially.
Yeah.
Right? So then I come back from my work. The first task is incomplete, and possibly the second task is also incomplete. So neither task has gotten done to my satisfaction, and my husband and I argue about it.
Yeah.
Because I have neglected to take into account how I need to accommodate his ADHD brain. And so we've been together. You want to hear something really funny? In September, I will know my husband 52 years.
That's awesome.
And we will be married in November 43.
We just hit 23 years married.
That is amazing. Congratulations. But
we just got to the point this year where I was talking to my mother-in-law where I am now old, the same age that she was when I met her for the first time. That was weird. Because I'm not old enough to be a mother-in-law.
Yeah, my mother had been a grandmother for quite a few years now, and my kids are married yet, right? But I, even after all these years, occasionally get stuck in forgetting to accommodate my husband's ADHD. And I know perfectly well that I have to say, first do this, then do that. I put it in IEPs. I put it in 504s. I write about it in my new book, The Parenting Compass. And yet, after 50 years, and yes, again, I was 15 when I met him. So, thank you. So I didn't know to do it then, but still, I, for decades, have known my husband has ADHD. I still forget to say, first do this, then do that. I should probably put signs all over my house. But that is
other
what
things, for a long time until a few years ago, I always have had little jobs here and there, but my primary role was I was a stay-at-home mom. All right, my phone is trying to ring. And so I was primarily responsible for, the housework and the laundry and those sorts of things because I was a stay-at-home mom. those are not my strengths. So I had to find accommodations for myself. I got a laundry service. We got to the point where
Right.
we could hire some cleaning help, not every day, but every other week, to come and just kind of help reset the house, because those sorts of things, like the regular small tasks, I really, really, really struggle with. So finding accommodations for the areas in your life that are just always going to be harder. And then I stopped
Right.
beating myself up about being bad at my job, right? Because this is my
Right.
job, is to
Yes.
do the household, and I am
Yeah.
doing a terrible job at it. That was before I knew I had ADHD. Everything made a lot more sense after that diagnosis. Oh,
So
I'm never going to be able
I
to keep
think
up a laundry.
giving yourself the space to say, I need accommodations,
Mm-hmm.
which means yelling at my husband, punishing him for having a disability. Hey, I should
Right.
know better, right? But when you're in the
Uh-huh.
hassle of life, even I forget. We forget.
Right. Right.
But then I have to stop and I have to apologize. Just
And
like when I
that
scream at
coming
my
back
kids,
together.
I have to
Mm-hmm.
apologize.
Yeah.
I need to get to my next appointment. We started a couple minutes
Yes.
late. I just texted them that I'm a couple of minutes late. But I think this was a great discussion. Nicole, do you want to wrap up?
Yes. Yeah. And next week, we're going to be talking about chores versus responsibilities with our kids. And so we will look forward to seeing you then. If you have any questions, suggestions, please put them in the comments. We do read them, and we would love to hear what you have to add to the conversation.
Right. Next Thursday, I won't be here. That's my week that I'm not on. So it'll be the week after, September 10th.
Yes, so 2 weeks from now.
We'll talk about chores versus responsibilities.
Yep. All right. Have a great week, everybody. And yeah.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Go buy Susan's book.
Parenting
Compass.
The Parenting Compass, Why Smart Teens Struggle.
It's really good.
Take care. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye. Thank you for watching. If you haven't already, please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. This video is not a substitute for counseling, psychotherapy, medical, or mental health care. The information and advice shared here should not be used in place of any form of diagnosis, treatment, or therapy. Information provided here does not involve diagnosis or treatment of medical or mental or psychological disorders. If you feel the need for professional support, please seek a local professional in your area. This video is for educational and entertainment purposes only.